our left, we have William Miller playing Blue-White Stoneblade, but a little bit of a twist. He actually has hybridized the Blue-White Stoneblade archetype with Miracles. He's got Terminus, Entreat the Angels, and he doesn't have Temporal Mastery, just Terminus and Entreat the Angels, but he does have a light Stoneforge Mystic package. Just 2 Stoneforge Mystics, 2 Snapcaster Mages, 1 Vendilion Click. What do you make of this splitting the difference, merging the Blue-White Stoneblade deck with Miracles?
So he has Miracles, he has the Stoneforge package, and does he have Counterbalance
He
as
does.
well?
He has Counterbalance
on
top.
So he's kind of, the best
Well, most of the
all
Miracle
worlds.
decks, I was going to say, I think the Miracles decks are usually Counterbalance top decks.
Yes, but he basically has all 3 mini combos in his deck. It's
on the other side,
it's very interesting. I'm going to be interested to see how it plays out. As Ben Swartz on the right-hand side, Star City Games Seattle Legacy champion last year, won with Hive Mind when he did win the title, playing it again. Only changes to his deck this tournament. He cut the Mental Missteps because they are banned for different cards in his sideboard. I believe he has some number of Flusterstorms here instead of Mental Missteps. So it'll be interesting to see exactly who's favored in this matchup. There are some things that William Miller's deck does very well, but Ben does not really have any creatures in his deck. So stuff like Terminus, Swords of Plowshares, Entreat the Angels, those are slow cards, or those cards are very poor against Ben's deck.
I know historically people have liked the blue-white counterbalance decks against Hive Mind, but it's hard to tell for sure how much this different take on it, how much it affects it. Having Spell Pierce, Force of Will, Counterspell, Counterbalance. That's a lot of interactive elements.
A ton of interactivity. As we'd see a Brainstorm here from William, with the fetch land being Polluted Delta, clearing the Brainstorm essentially, getting him some new cards, putting away the poor ones. And in this matchup, there are plenty of them.
Another basic island.
If William doesn't know what Ben's playing, an island represents a ton of decks, of course, in this format, and a ton of potential plays, but a deck that has really fallen off the radar, we saw a small increase of it last week in Portland, is Hive Mind. It's not a deck that sees a lot of play, so if William doesn't know what he's up against, this can catch him completely off guard, especially in Game 1. As Ben is considering his options here, we do see a Brainstorm in his hand. I also believe we see at least 1 more land, potentially 2, and a Grim Monolith.
So Miller, after having passed the turn with just 2 islands in play, still not tipping his hand about what he's playing either.
Yep. There are no giveaways either side, besides both people know that they're playing blue and likely Brainstorm in their deck, as we see a Tundra from William Miller.
Both players probably making AJ Soccer proud by waiting on their Brainstorms until they have fetch lands to get max value.
Well, AJ's a Brainstorm stickler, as you know. As William is taking a look at Ben's Brainstorm, it is a Jace Brainstorm, which probably makes your heart swoon just a little bit. Don't say it doesn't, because I don't believe you.
It doesn't. I don't believe you.
I don't believe you. So Ben, considering his options, Brainstorm always a very difficult card to resolve correctly. You want to make sure you don't waste any valuable resources, put things back in the wrong order, considering if he wants to draw one of those cards he puts back, or if he's just going to shuffle them away with the Scalding Tarn.
I mean, what's his game plan against a bunch of permission? Like, he doesn't really have much he can do besides try to kill you with Show and Tell, try to kill you with Hive Mind, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's all that this deck is trying to do. Now, of course, he can Show and Tell in a Hive Mind, or he can Show and Tell in an Emrakul. Also, hardcasting Hive Mind in this deck is not terribly difficult with all of the double lands and City of Traders and Ancient Tomb and Grim Monolith in the deck. So his deck is able to fight against this deck relatively well, as we see a Vendilion Click on the end step in response to the sacrifice of a Scalding Tarn.
And that is not what Ben wanted to see.
This is going to target Ben.
Not only does this Vendilion Click disrupt Ben's game plan, but it represents a certain amount of aggro control, which is not what Ben wants to face. He doesn't want to be on a clock dealing with disruption and interaction.
As we see a Hive Mind, an Intuition, a Slaughter Pact, a Grim Monolith, an Ancient Tomb, and a Pact of Negation, and a Ponder. So Ben has a very nice hand here set up. He's decided to sacrifice the Scalding Tarn to shuffle some of the lesser cards away, but he has a hand that can go to battle here and defend itself pretty well with the Hive Mind.
I was going to say, doesn't this hand just win in 2 turns? Next turn he plays Ancient Tomb, Grim Monolith. The turn after, he plays Hive Mind with Pact Negation backup, including Slaughter Pact for the kill.
Well, Vendilion Clique does take the Hive Mind, so Ben is down that card, as he's going to finish resolving a Scalding Tarn now. We're going to see him search out Underground Sea.
So next turn, he'll be able to Intuition for Hive Minds again.
Correct.
But he'll still be a mana short of being able to kill Miller on the following turn. You know, barring some kind of a fortunate draw.
We've seen quite a few of those today and over the course of the weekend, so anything can happen. But again, Ben isn't in a huge rush here.
No.
Vendilion Clique does, I mean, it is a good clock. You know, it's something that, but it is something that he can ignore for at least a couple of turns.
So Ben draws a Brainstorm. His hand the quality continues to improve.
And we are going to see a Ponder here from Swartz. So we found another Hive Mind. We have an island, so we found 2 Hive Minds.
Wow. All right. So he's probably going to want to set it up so that this turn he can play a Grim Monolith and threaten to drop Hive Mind next turn with Pact Negation backup. I think Ben is in the total driver's seat for this game.
I feel like he is in a relatively good situation right now.
Now, does William have another Brainstorm in hand? Because he needs to find a Force of Will ASAP, but even that's not going to be enough. You know, like he's facing 2 Hive Minds and a Pact Negation.
Yeah. And Ben can do something as simple as just casting the first Hive Mind and just let it get countered.
Mm-hmm.
Because, he's not underneath that much pressure, as we do see an Ancient Tomb here. And we may see a Grim Monolith here from Swartz. Or an Intuition, you know, he does have options.
He decides he wants to play it slow.
Yep. When we see a draw.
Which is reasonable anyway, because if he has another land, he can just cast the Grim Monolith and the Hive Mind next turn.
Yep.
This way he can go get a Force of Will, so he has 2 layers of backup for next turn's kill.
Indeed. And we're going to see a Stoneforge Mystic here from William. And as we said at the top of the match, I believe he only does have Batterskull to search out.
That's correct.
No swords, no
nope.
Ozawa's Jit, nothing of that
Just
nature.
1 Batterskull in the main deck, 1 Jitte in the sideboard.
Shuffling away. Batterskull will be going to William's hand, and that may conclude his turn. He does have a Brainstorm in his hand, and you also do see the Force of Will there.
So William's probably feeling pretty good about himself right now. He's got a nice little clock down, Force of Will to protect him. Little does he know, he's multiple Force of Wills away from being able to survive through the next turn.
As we are going to see
an Intuition for Pact Negation or Force of Will.
We're going to see a Brainstorm in response here from William.
I don't think there's any combination of cards that can get him out of this, though.
We see a Counterbalance, we see another Brainstorm, and what looks to be either...
a Plow.
Yeah, it looks to be a Plow.
Yeah, there's nothing that's, at this point, I think, I mean, barring some miraculous sequence of plays, this is... He just has a single Force of Will. 1 layer of Force of Will to go through this, you know?
Well, I mean, we just saw, in the last matches, we're going to see a Force of Will here on Intuition.
Yep.
And that does a nice job of getting that card out of his hand.
Ben and taps. I'm going to see a land, Grim Monolith, a Hive Mind, and a Slaughter Pact on one of the 2 creatures.
That's what we may see here. William pitched a Counterbalance off of the Force of Will for you guys wondering there at home. And now we are going to see 6 mana.
The Hive Mind?
We're going to see a Hive Mind be cast by Swartz.
Remember, Hive Mind is not opt-in. It
Yes.
is non-consensual Hive Mind.
Yes. And we're going to see a Brainstorm here in response, and he knows the 2 swords are on top, and he is going to pack it in very quickly.
Did Ben even show him the Slaughter Pact?
He saw it from the Vendilion Clique. So he knows that he is dead. He also saw a pact as well, so there are going to be 2 packs that he was going to have to pay for.
So what is William getting out of his sideboard to try to, gain some ground here?
William on the play this game, for his sideboard, an additional Vendilion Clique is going to likely be moved in. A Disenchant, which does not play incredibly well against Hive Mind.
It has some functionality. I mean, it does slow down Grim Monolith too, but it is definitely not the right way to fight Hive Mind in general.
And then you're going to find 2 Oblivion Rings and 2 Surgical Extraction. Surgical Extraction being incredibly good against Intuition. And then you'll find another counterbalance in the sideboard here, which is he has 3 in his main deck and 1 in his sideboard, so it can bring him up to 4. And he certainly, has cards that he wants to sideboard out in this matchup in 4 Swords to Plowshares and 4 Terminus. Those are easy cuts.
Yeah, I mean, he probably wants to cut the explosives too. Do you think he actually keeps a couple Terminus just to give him some protection against Emrakul? The show and tell Emrakul plan?
It's possible. The thing that happened that game, of course, is that with the Vendilion Click and everything else that occurred in that game, William did not see show and tell or Emrakul from Ben's deck. It depends on how familiar he is with the deck.
True.
The things that he saw that game, there's nothing to tip him off that there's show and tell or Emrakul in this deck. If he's well versed in Legacy, he'll know that that's part of the deck. But if he's not, then he won't.
Yep. On the other side, Ben Swartz, he has access to Flusterstorm, which I think he'll probably want just to help fight through, some permission. And he has Vendilion Click, which is a nice answer to Vendilion Click. He doesn't know how many Vendilion Clicks Miller has. So Vendilion Click, one of the best ways to fight Vendilion Click while simultaneously getting an idea of what you have to play around and so on. That's probably the extent of it. Some Flusterstorm and some Vendilion Click. Probably taking out some amount of packs. Not sure what else he'd cut though. Cut a few packs. Maybe trim a little bit of the show and tell package. I don't know. Maybe even I think you need to keep all the mana.
Yeah, I think you need to keep the mana too. I don't think he can trim on monoliths. But again, this is a matchup where I could see him maybe trimming on monoliths just because again he's not in much of a rush. He's not going to be put underneath a lot of pressure that he has to hurry up and kill his opponent like he would be against other combo decks or a hyper-aggressive deck like Zoo that can kill you very quickly. He isn't underneath that sort of pressure.
He doesn't realize, he has no idea that Miller's only playing 5 creatures and no manlands. An awful lot of these blue-white decks have Mishra's Factories, sometimes Mutavaults, and then they have usually 4 Stoneforge Mystics, more Snapcasters, more Vendilion Clicks, occasionally even other creatures. So he might not realize just how controlling the setup is. He hasn't seen Terminus or Entreat the Angels yet, or Counterbalance Top for that matter. Oh no, he did see Counterbalance. He was exiled to Force of Will.
And while William can't put pressure on Ben from a life point, from like a life total standpoint, a different way that he can put pressure on Ben is just by resolving Jace the Mind Sculptor and Fate Sealing him each turn. That's a different way of putting pressure on him and basically saying, you've got about 5 or 6 turns to accomplish what you need to accomplish, and I can, for the most part, control that.
Yeah, because Jace being able to bounce Emrakul, huge. Yeah, absolutely huge. I think one of the other features of Terminus is the 6 casting cost. Terminus gives him some 6s so that his counterbalance can actually counter a Hive Mind.
That's true as well.
Which can be super valuable, because he's short on good hits there. Like, he doesn't have very many 3s for, after boarding he'll have just 2 O-Rings maybe, and for sure the 2 Vendilion Clicks to keep show and tell off the table. As for Hive Mind, the Terminus is the best way to stop that with counterbalance.
Well, and you bring up a good point with Terminus and the casting cost and how it does work proactively with counterbalance and in William's favor. So now that you did bring that up, and that's something that I overlooked, I could easily see him keeping in some number of those to hedge against Emrakul and to be able to have that interaction with counterbalance and Sensei's Divining Top.
And he's got plenty of mediocre cards.
Yeah.
Like, it's not exactly short on things to board out, like Engineer Explosives or Entreat the Angels.
And those Swords of Plowshares as well.
And for sure, the Plows are the first to go.
Yeah, there are plenty of cards that he can move in and out here. So his deck is going to be much more focused at stopping Ben from what he's trying to accomplish. But will he be able to stop him enough, or will he be able to kill him in time? That's what we're going to find out here, as both players are drawing their opening 7 hands now.
Dude, why doesn't anybody play that Rolling Earthquake? If people are playing stuff like Rough and Tumble, dude, I want to see people play Rolling Earthquake. That's the Portal 3 Kingdoms Earthquake that only hits creatures that don't have horsemanship.
It's been a little while.
That's a nice one. I guess that would kill your Delver, though, but...
As we do see both players just lead with lands and say go, we're going to see a cracking of Polluted Delta right now. Very nice Polluted Delta, mind you. Different language and sign. Things that make you go... So another Tundra for William Miller. Once your opponent shows you he's playing Hive Mind, you can just go hog wild with the dual lands. There's not really too much concern for your mana to getting disrupted.
Miller looking to find a way to actually put down a clock that he can actually, you know, protect with his permission. He's got a lot of permission. He really does. Not a lot of clock.
It looks like, I believe this turn is on Swartz at this moment, considering his turns. Yep. Interesting to see Miller just sack that fetch land right away. Especially with a brainstorm in his hand, I'm a little surprised to see him just immediately move on from that portion of the game.
Yeah, I mean, what are you saving?
Yeah. So we see Swartz play Misty Rainforest, sacrifice it to go get a basic island. We're going to see a counterbalance here from Miller. Swartz's attempted Grim Monolith was countered via Spell Pierce, and we are going to see a Force of Will here from Swartz, removing Intuition, attempting to stop this counterbalance. And it looks as though it has worked. Swartz is going to draw his card. And we know, obviously we can see Miller's hand. There's a Brainstorm there. There is a counterbalance there as well, and then Academy Ruins and another fetch land. If Swartz were to pull the trigger here with a Show and Tell for what have you, it would be good. The question, of course, if he's going to pull the trigger.
You think Miller boarded in is one humility? The potential of locking out a Show and Tell Damrical?
It's tough to say if that's the route he wants to go to hedge. You know, I feel like you're going to want to leave in Terminus before that. You agree or disagree with that?
I don't know. I think he keeps some number of Terminuses, but I think that the one humility just adds a nice little dimension. You just save it for the Emrakul, you know?
As we see Swartz just pass the turn.
Just like coming from different angles in this format, you know? People are doing such crazy stuff. Being able to hit them with something that they're not prepared for, not ready for, or it's not mathematically worth trying to play around seems real nice sometimes.
So we're going to see Miller move in with a second counterbalance. Swartz is going to Intuition in response. Now, for those of you guys who can't see Ben's hand at home, he does have Show and Tell and Emrakul in his hand, and he opted not to go for it that turn. Scared of whatever Miller could have, another Spell Pierce, another Force of Will, Daze, which is typically not played in these type of decks, but he could have here. He elected to not go for it.
I think his plan was just wait Intuition for Force of Wills so that you can protect it to force it through. Now, obviously he's going to have to back up plan and just go ahead and Force of Will the counterbalance and just hope Miller doesn't have a Force of Will. Of course, Miller doesn't have a Force of Will. And I think that Swartz is going to have an Emrakul next turn. The problem, of course, if Miller has a Jace the Mind Sculptor, that Emrakul's got nothing coming.
Indeed. And he also has the out of Caracas in his deck as well. And the longer that you wait, the longer, you know, the more time you're going to give him to draw to that Jace the Mind Sculptor that you spoke about, but also the Caracas as well. So, you know, you can wait a little while, but if your plan is to Show and Tell Emrakul, you want to cut the draw steps down as much as you can.
Absolutely. Compact the game. Get it over with right now.
So Swartz considering his options. 3 Force of Wills are the first thing that come to my mind. You think there's anything else that he could search for here?
I mean,
Pact of Negation doesn't really seem ideal.
No, and he doesn't have enough, he's not one of the misdirection people. You know, some people playing 2 misdirections so they can Intuition for Force of Wills twice. But that doesn't help in this position. I think they might be asking Ben to hurry it up a little bit.
Considering his options.
The head judge is on his way over.
He's on the loose. likely to be an appeal here of a ruling. Not entirely sure which one it is, but we will see exactly what is happening here.
I mean, they kind of look like they're progressing the game a little bit.
Yeah. Looks like they may have just moved on from whatever the discrepancy may have been.
Ben looking to force will this counterbalance. I don't think he realizes that this counterbalance is not actually as threatening as a lot of people's counterbalances are. Nevertheless, it is a way he could lose, so he wants to keep it off the table.
Yeah, he wants to avoid that the best that he can.
Oh no, he lets it stick. He just wants to be able to make sure the show and tell goes through.
Now that's interesting, because we're going to see a brainstorm here. Hit 1, hit 2, hit 3. Sensei's Divining Top, Surgical Extraction. Nothing to save him for William at this point.
Yep. He can still fetch in response and hope to blind hit one of the 2 Vendilion clicks.
Those are the only 3s that he has hiding in his
Potentially O-ring if he brought it in. There, yeah, we do see O-rings.
Okay.
So he has 4 hits in his deck that could stop this show and tell, and that would be huge if he blind hits here. I know what I would do.
You'd blind hit.
You're damn right I would.
We're going to see a Surgical Extraction.
Interesting. Why did he pay the mana? Why not do it for 0? Acting like just before you search, just do it for 0 so that he doesn't know that you don't have a 5 on top. I don't know. Like the surgical is going to draw out the Force of Will though, right? Like he's going to be able to surgical and take the Force of Will.
He can, like, I mean, Ben could force this, I guess.
No,
yeah,
just let him do it.
Yeah, just let him do it. Yeah,
Take the Force of Will.
Yeah. Or take the intuition, like either way. Take whatever you want.
No, you take the Force of Will because you know he has one in his hand.
Sure.
Maybe not. I guess you could also just take the intuition if you.
Yeah. I think there are some options here of what he can do with surgical.
Yeah, it's Force of Will.
How do you feel as they resolve the surgical extraction? Because I feel like he just wants to get an idea of what's in his deck. How do you feel about him not fighting over the counterbalance there?
That's fine. I think Ben might realize the counterbalance. I mean, these Hive Mind decks were originally created to fight counterbalance because of 3 and 6 being such awkward casting costs for most of the mainstream counterbalance decks, which were so much more focused on 1, 2, and obviously 4. So I think he may realize that even though counterbalance is annoying, it's not the end of the world.
Okay.
We're about to see. Does he believe in the heart of the cards?
Are we just going to let this show and tell resolve and not resolve our counterbalance trigger? And that's what Ben looks like he's asking.
I haven't really seen any clear indication that anybody's passed priority after the surgical extraction resolved.
Yeah.
Well, we have this moment between plays. Would like to note that there are only 2 Watery Graves in the Death Shadow deck.
Yep.
So he did not actually have the kill on board by fetching up a Watery Grave.
Indeed. So now it looks like we have some more judging to be done here. Just clarification on if he did pass priority on the counterbalance trigger, if he did not.
Did not look like he did. I didn't see any indication of priority passing, but of course we can't hear the players. Both players waiting to see if somehow this counterbalance isn't triggering. It probably will, as it probably should.
I feel like I agree with you on that one.
Ben Swartz, usually on the coverage side of things, decides he wants to get a little bit dirty.
I think you called him a filthmonger.
Yeah,
yesterday.
but that's just because of the technology. I mean, he's playing stuff that only BR could love. All right, looks like we might have our ruling soon. From the eyes of the judge, it would appear that he isn't giving Ben the news that Ben was hoping for. I think we're going to see a counterbalance flip.
No, we're not.
What? Doesn't get the flip. This is going to be brutal if he top decks the 3. Now, fortunately, if it's the O-ring, at least he can still hit the Emrakul.
Indeed. I mean, he still has outs in this situation. There is still Jace the Mind Sculptor in his deck. There still is Terminus. Assuming there are still Terminus. There still is Oblivion Ring. So there are outs in this situation. Caracas as well.
But if he draws Vendilion Click, this is going to be super embarrassing.
There's the Sensei's Divining Top.
Alright, on the upkeep. Looking for an answer to Emrakul. Well, okay, at least it was just a land.
Alright, so those are there's 3.
It's going to have to be fetch land, right?
Yep. Well, it can be. He has a fetch line in his hand too, so he can go ahead and crack that.
If Emrakul attacks, he's going to lose so many permanents that he'll be on the hope to Terminus just to keep the game going plan. But he does have a chance right now to top again and see if he can get an Oblivion Ring or a Terminus on top of his deck.
Correct. Now, if he does activate top this turn, again, he will not be able to find Jace the Mind Sculptor as an out.
Correct.
Now, he does have 3 Jaces in his deck versus some number of Terminus, 2 Oblivion Rings. We see an Engineer Explosives and Entreat the Angels, and...
So he packs his cards up. That was so hasty. Why pack your cards up? You're not dead. Like, he puts Entreat the Angels on top, then he can still tap the sea because he's got a fetch land in his hand.
He either has a fetch land or he drew the Spell Pierce. I'm not sure which one it was.
Well, he shouldn't have drawn the Spell Pierce even if he did, but if he keeps the fetch land in his hand, he loses all of his permanents except 1 land, and just, I mean, I guess he's not going to have, I guess he can't keep a top and the land.
Indeed. So what he would have to do is he'd have to sack the tokens. He'd have to sack the 2 angel tokens.
He's only going to have 1.
He's only going to make 1. So
now he's going to put the top on top of his deck, draw the entreat for 1, sack the entreat, the counterbalance. No, he is dead.
No, he's still, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's going to run out of mana. He cannot keep the enough mana to be able to even top deck a Terminus.